Hello everybody. Today I'm going to be doing my Communications 154 infamous person speech on Richard Biggenwald, and there's not very many people that say they know somebody who's come into contact with this man, but I actually do. Richard Biggenwald was born in Rockland County, New York in 1940. He had a turbulent childhood. Right off the bat, from the age of 5, he had set fire to his home, was in a psychiatric facility. It is said that he was beaten by his alcoholic father. By the age of 8, he was drinking and gambling. By the age of 9, he was getting electric shock treatment. And by the age of 11, he was placed in a facility in New York where he remained until he was 16 years old and graduated from 8th grade and returned to his mother, who now lived in Staten Island. Shortly after he was returned to her, he went to high school, left, stole a car, went to Nashville, Tennessee, where he was arrested and transported back by federal agents. He was then returned to his mother again. He stole another car with a pal of his, drove to Bayonne, New Jersey, where he shot and killed a clerk who was 43 years old. He was arrested, sentenced to life in prison, unfortunately only served 16 years of that sentence and was released on 1974 for good behavior. After that, he laid low and he worked some odd jobs. He got married, moved to Asbury Park. He was arrested at one point for a rape in the early 1980s, but after the victim could not identify him, he was released. He committed murder by picking up a girl named Anna from the Asbury Park boardwalk. She was 18 years old. He picked her up. He shot her 4 times and dumped her body on Sunset Avenue in Ocean Township behind the Burger King. And some young kids found the body and reported it to police. On a tip the police received from Dern, who was a friend of his, they were led to the bodies of a few other people that he had actually killed, and he had buried them in his mother's backyard in Staten Island. They found Betsy Bacon, who was 17 years old, who had disappeared in 1982, another girl named Maria, who had disappeared in October of 1981. She was from Bricktown, New Jersey, and then also a 34-year-old drug dealer with the last name of Ward. The reason I chose him was because he actually did odd jobs for my neighbor, and my neighbor was a Gold Shield detective in New York. He did some painting jobs and things, and at one point he had come down the ladder and smashed his wife's tomato plants. Now his wife is about 4'8", 4'10" tops, and was screaming at this man because he had smashed her tomato plants and she was calling him a murderer. And the ironic thing was, a couple of days later, he came back with a flat of tomato plants for Maria and, apologized that he was so sorry and planted them and everything. Well, imagine George's surprise when he's sitting in his living room and watching footage of this yard that he recognized being dug up and all these bodies being exhumed. It turns out that he had gone to his Richard's mother's home to pay him for the job he had completed for them, and he was in uniform. And Richard kept laughing at him and laughing at him and laughing at him. And it was because he was standing on the graves of these bodies, and he was in his New York policeman's uniform. The other reason I chose it was because I was a young kid in the 1980s, and I remember the murders very well. I remember them in the paper. Betsy Bacon was a cousin of a boy I actually had gone to school with, so it kind of hit close to home. And then talking to George and Maria years later and hearing the story, I was just shocked and surprised that somebody actually had that kind of a contact with this man, because he was an absolute maniac. And that's the reason I chose it, and I thought I would share that story because today it just amazes me that he had contact with him. Thanks.